how do we look at channels from a profitability perspective? And at conferences, at different forums, it has been spoken a lot about, but there's been very little done to really address this. And increasingly, it is becoming a bigger challenge for a lot of the companies, and especially when you look at it from a perspective of companies like IHG, which are big players in the marketplace. The distribution costs keep rising. And one of the big challenges for us is how do we make sure that while we are driving revenue or RevPAR into our hotels, how do we keep that balance of making sure that we are driving profitable revenue into our hotels? So we embarked on this journey of looking at how do we optimize channel revenues. So the basic, when we look at optimizing channel revenues, the couple of factors that impact channel optimization is understanding your channel pace, to understand your demand patterns by channel. So break it down by channel. The other key piece is, of course, the cost of distribution or the cost of each of the channels. To understand and break it down by each of the channels. And then understanding what are your segments, who are booking through each one of your channels. And the last piece is how do we benchmark our channel performance against our competitors. So we started off by looking at analyzing demand patterns by channels. So fortunately, we have a lot of enterprise tools and data mining platforms that enable us to look at pace by individual channels. We are also currently working on how do we factor this into our revenue optimization system, which is a proprietary revenue optimization system that we have built, which is Perform. So we're looking at how do we incorporate that channel forecasting and ability of looking at demand patterns by channels into that. The other critical piece is to start breaking down. Today, traditionally, we break down our forecasts by segments. And the shift needs to be breaking it down by channels. Ideal world would be to be breaking it down by channels, by segments. But to start off, we looked at how do we forecast our business by our different channels. And this is extremely critical because if we can't forecast by channels, we can't start yielding by channels. We can't start pricing by channels. So all of those concepts that we talk about of, is rate parity really relevant? How do we differentiate our products by channel? How do we price our products differently? How do we control or make inventory available on different channels at different points of time? Would not be possible if we don't understand what the forecast by channel is. As we all know, the cost of distribution. Now, this is just an example, not actual data, but it gives you an indication of how much of revenues actually flow through from different channels. So if I look at $100 revenue that gets generated directly through the hotel website, typically around 90% materializes, $90 materialize there. And this is factoring in all of your cost of web marketing, search engine marketing, all of that element. So you'll end up with $90. If the same $100, if that comes through an OTA, you end up paying commissions anywhere between 15 to 25%, and that ends you up with $75 to $85. If you look at the GDS channel, which has not only the cost of the agency commissions that you might end up paying, but also the cost of connectivity, the switch fee, the GDS fee, you almost end up with $75. And if you look at the non-commissionable GDS revenue, it typically comes out at around $88. So you can see each channel actually has a different bottom line. So if the same revenue flowed through every through different channels, it could end up with an absolutely different results, impacting the profitability of our hotels. And while we might be growing revenues through one of these channels, we might be actually impacting profitability adversely if we're not taking this into consideration. So one of the measurements that we have started to put in place, and it has been talked about and has been discussed quite a lot within the industry, but this year we put it as a metric that we measure ourselves against, is net RevPAR. So net RevPAR is simply about looking at your RevPAR net cost of sales. So your total revenue, take off the cost of distribution and all of the variable costs, and divide it by your total available rooms, which gives you net RevPAR. So growing net RevPAR ensures that net of distribution costs, you are actually driving profitable revenue into your hotels. We have seen scenarios where hotels have ended up growing RevPAR, but net RevPAR actually has been in the negative. And that's primarily because all of the growth in RevPAR has been driven through channels that cost more. So net RevPAR as a metric it helps us stay on top of remaining profitable in the business. So when we look at cost of sales, and now this is the big debate that comes across. What are the cost of sales? And there is always a healthy debate within the industry on what do we classify as cost of sales. I have listed out some of the examples that we have used to arrive at cost of sales. So if you look at the hotel website, it is essentially your search engine marketing expenses. Those are variable. So you pay cost per click to Google. That goes into your cost of sale there. Online travel agencies, you pay commissions. Some hotels have, or some hotel companies have direct connectivity, and that direct connectivity costs them money. If you're not a big chain, you typically might have a cost of a channel manager that you need to factor in. GDS, transaction fees, your switch fees, all of that needs to be factored in. And last but not the least is, in the other bucket is essentially your other other TA commissions, so other travel agency commissions, and also looking at loyalty programs. So if you have a loyalty program that pays back points, what is the cost of that point? So are you netting that off while you're looking at your net RevPAR? So this has enabled us to create a mindset change within our hotels to understand and put focus on that cost of distribution and drive the most profitable channels effectively. So what are the challenges involved in capturing this cost? Now, one of the challenges that we still encounter, and we're not 100% there yet, is the cost, allocating the cost to specific channels. It's all good and dandy if we are able to get the total cost of sales and calculate net RevPAR. It's easy. However, till you're able to accurately allocate that cost to the respective channels, you're not able to put a finger on which channel is more profitable. Or so that is a big manual process today in terms of understanding where and how that costs are being attributed. There needs to be some changes in the way we track some of our expenses. So if there are variable incentives that we are paying at the hotel level, that we typically, accounting would typically bucket all of them into salaries and wages. But we need to be able to call that out separately to be able to take that off as cost of sale. So there needs to be a shift in the way we track our expenses or our costs. Currently, it is, I must admit, it is a very manual, labor-intensive process to get that data. To be able to accurately go down to that level and accurately get allocated to each of the channels is a big challenge. And that brings me to the last piece, which is essentially benchmarking. Now, how are we performing versus our competition on channels? Now, we all have STR reports, and majority of us look at benchmarking ourselves on RevPAR with our competition. But in the industry today, we have very little information or very little participation from majority of the hotel companies on looking at how do we benchmark ourselves against channel performance. One of the tools that RHG has started using with TravelClick is Demand 360. We have rolled it out all over the Americas. Asia-Pac has been a challenge because we don't have enough of hotels participating in the program. So the quality of data that's coming out of that benchmark is a huge challenge. So this enables us to look at, so Demand 360 not only gives us historical information, but also future information, which is absolutely amazing from a perspective of being able to forecast and benchmark by channel, and also being able to forecast how we are performing against our competition from a channel perspective. So that's essentially where we are on our journey. And probably we'll leave the questions for later. Puneet, or?
Yeah, I mean, thanks a lot, Shailesh. That was a great presentation in the sense that you brought some great aspects to light.